Wow. I've been following SpaceX for years, and even, I have to admit, I was on the edge of my seat watching that super heavy landing.
Yeah.
Catching a giant rocket booster after it launches a StarShip prototype, it felt like something really special, you know?
It was something else, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Truly remarkable engineering, like you said, a real turning point in how we think about space travel. For decades, we just accepted the idea of expendable rockets, ditching those expensive boosters in the ocean or on drone ships.
Just tossing them out like yesterday's trash.
Exactly. But this changes everything.
So we're all in agreement that catching a rocket is seriously impressive. But I have to ask, what makes it such a game changer? There's got to be more to it than just looking cool, right?
Absolutely. It's all about reusability, a concept SpaceX has been pushing with the Falcon 9 for a while now. But with StarShip and Super Heavy, well, they're taking it to a whole new level.
Okay, so reusability makes sense on the surface, but I have to imagine it was incredibly expensive to develop. So realistically, how much does it actually save SpaceX? Can we put a number on that?
Think of it like this. Imagine using an airplane for one flight and then just scrapping it. That's essentially what we've been doing in the space industry for decades.
That's a pretty compelling analogy. Throwing away an entire plane after a single trip.
Right. So you can imagine the cost savings over time.
Yeah, I can see how that would add up.
Building a brand new Falcon 9 from scratch, that'll set you back about $62 million.
Whoa. Okay, so not exactly pocket change.
Not even close.
Yeah.
That booster alone, that's like the bulk of the cost, somewhere between 37 and 45 million.
But landing that thing is a pretty big deal.
Huge EE. Think about it, recovering even one booster means saving tens of millions of dollars per launch.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense, but what about getting it ready to fly again? Like, surely that can't be cheap either, refurbishing something like that?
Right, it's not like taking your car in for an oil change.
Exactly.
That refurbishing a used Falcon 9 booster cost them roughly $1 million. Now compare that to building a brand new Falcon 9, which...
Those savings add up fast. No wonder they've invested so heavily in this technology.
Exactly. But it's important to remember those savings aren't immediate. I mean, SpaceX has invested over $1 billion into research and development just to make reusability a reality.
That's a long-term vision, for sure.
It really is a testament to their commitment, I think.
It's a gamble that seems to be paying off. Now, we keep mentioning StarShip. Can you remind us what that is exactly and how it's different from Falcon 9? They both seem pretty advanced, to be honest.
StarShip is different. It's a whole different animal, really. Designed for those missions that, well, used to be the stuff of science fiction. Missions to Mars, lunar bases, even venturing further out into the solar system, that sort of thing.
Okay, so StarShip is the spacecraft, the ship itself. But what about this Super Heavy we keep hearing about? Where does that fit in?
Super Heavy is StarShip's first stage booster, the muscle behind the whole operation, the one responsible for getting that massive spacecraft off the ground and into space. The one we saw stealing the show in that incredible landing video.
It looked gigantic in the footage, that's for sure.
Oh, it is. Falcon 9's impressive, don't get me wrong, but Super Heavy. It operates on a whole other scale. We're talking about raw power, sheer size, it's something else.
And you're saying it's designed to be reusable too. The complexity of that just boggles my mind.
It really is an amazing feat of engineering. And here's something else that might surprise you. Unlike Falcon 9, which has a limited number of reuses before it needs, a serious overhaul, Musk believes Super Heavy could potentially fly over 100 times.
Hold on, did you say 100 flights?
That's right, with just minor maintenance between flights, of course.
That's unbelievable. With that kind of reusability, it really does make you wonder about the technical challenges of catching a rocket like that. I mean, it can't be as simple as, I don't know, plucking it out of the sky with a giant net or something, right?
You're right, it's definitely not that simple. It's a delicate dance, an intricate maneuver that requires incredibly precise control and timing. After Super Heavy separates from StarShip, it has to completely reorient itself, navigate back towards the launch pad, all while dealing with atmospheric drag and, well, the laws of physics.
It sounds like a carefully choreographed ballet, but with a rocket the size of a skyscraper.
You got it. And that brings us to how they actually managed to catch this thing as it comes hurtling back to Earth. Precision is key, and of course some seriously groundbreaking technology.
So how do they actually do it? I'm still picturing those giant nets in my head.
Well, it's a little more sophisticated than that. Remember those two arms we saw extending from the launch tower in the video? The ones they call the chopsticks?
Right, I remember seeing those.
Well, Super Heavy basically has to thread the needle and land perfectly within those arms.
Threading the needle seems like kind of an understatement when you're talking about a rocket booster the size of a small skyscraper.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild maneuver.
What's the margin for error with something like that?
It's incredibly small, to be honest. Those chopsticks, they act as this giant catching mechanism, right?
Yeah.
Guiding the booster in for a controlled stop. But if the wind picks up, or there's even the slightest miscalculation, well, things could go very wrong very quickly.
I bet. It's not like they've got a reset button on something like that.
Definitely not. It takes an incredible amount of coordination and precision.
So we've talked about the why catching a rocket is important and the how they actually pull it off. But what about the what now? What does this success actually mean moving forward? For SpaceX? For space exploration? I mean, for humanity in general.
It's a big question, isn't it? And an exciting one. Because this isn't just about SpaceX, right? This success, it's a major win for anyone who's ever looked up at the stars and dreamed of, well, of something more. It paves the way for more frequent and ambitious space flights, maybe even more affordable space flights down the line, and that's huge.
More affordable. So you're saying there's a chance I could actually afford a trip to orbit someday?
Maybe not quite yet, but it's a step in the right direction. But on a more serious note, those lower launch costs, they have huge implications for scientific research, for deploying satellites, even for things like, well, have you ever heard of space-based infrastructure?
Space-based infrastructure. That sounds a little like something out of Star Trek.
Maybe, but it's an idea that's gaining traction. Imagine building massive structures in space, free from the constraints of gravity. Space stations, solar power arrays, even telescopes that would dwarf anything we have on Earth.
I'm trying to wrap my head around that, building something that massive in space.
It's a wild thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
But with lower launch costs, it could become a reality. We could be building things in space, sending them back to Earth, maybe even to other planets. Who knows?
Okay, now that's just mind-blowing. It really sounds like this achievement has the potential to completely reshape our relationship with space. Instead of just visiting for a little while, we could be building a permanent presence out there, expanding humanity's reach beyond Earth, which of course brings us back to SpaceX's ultimate goal, right? Getting humans to Mars.
Exactly. StarShip and Super Heavy, they're essential to making that vision a reality. Every successful launch, every landing, especially one like this, it brings them one step closer.
It's incredible, isn't it? Like, we've gone from these grainy images of the moon landing to, literally catching rockets out of the sky. What's next? Flying cars.
Well, we're working on those too, believe it or not. But you're right, it really highlights the sheer speed of innovation these days. Things that used to be, pure science fiction, they're becoming our everyday reality. It's an exciting time to be alive.
It makes you wonder, what will it be like 10, 20 years from now? Will catching a rocket booster be as normal as watching a plane land?
It's definitely a possibility. And it really begs the question, if space travel does become more accessible, more affordable, like SpaceX is aiming for, what will humanity's role be in this new frontier?
Wow, that's a big one. That's a question that's been around for centuries, hasn't it?
It has. And there's no easy answer. But as we see these incredible achievements, these feats of engineering, it's a question we all have to grapple with. What will we do with this power, with the ability to maybe even one day inhabit other worlds?
It's exciting, but it's also a little intimidating. It's one thing to be amazed by the technology, the ambition of it all, but it's another thing entirely to consider what it means for humanity, for our future. What do we do with this responsibility?
Absolutely. It's not just about technological progress anymore. It's about what it means to be human, about our place in the universe. And those are questions that, we're all going to have to find answers to together.
Well said. It's clear that this achievement by SpaceX, it's not just a win for them, it's a win for all of us, a giant leap forward. So thank you for joining us for this deep dive. It's been quite a journey exploring the what ifs, the possibilities of it all. And until next time, keep looking up and never stop asking those big questions.